Hey guys, Max Scoville here for Rev3 Games, and I'm reviewing Dragon's Dogma. This is, of course, Capcom's first foray into the giant epic fantasy open world action RPG genre, and I've really been looking forward to it personally. I've made no secret about that. I previewed the game a while back and I had a blast. I told everybody to go download the demo. I even interviewed the producer. The game comes out this week. Is it worth the hype? Let's find out. The plot of Dragon's Dogma is not anything revolutionary. In the magical fantasy realm of Grancis, an evil dragon or great worm has shown up, as dragons frequently do. It's ruining things for everyone, and of course it's up to me, or you, the player, to stop him. Character creation and customization is a big part of Dragon's Dogma, and it does it extremely well. This is probably the most extensive character creation menu I've seen in a game since Saints Row 2. I wish I'd spent the time to create a super realistic version of myself, but I instead modeled my character after Glenn Danzig, because that's apparently a thing I do in RPGs. Anyway, the game starts with your character enjoying life as a humble fisherman. When your village comes under attack from the dragon, you fight it for a second, and then it rips out your heart and eats it, and then you come back to life as the Arisen, which basically means that you're sort of magical, and you've got to go through a bunch of quests to, fight the dragon that ate your heart and all that. Like I said, it's pretty standard in terms of fantasy. You gotta kill a dragon. What makes Dragon's Dogma unique is the pawn system. Pawns are NPC companions. They kind of roam the land looking for work, and they're not quite human, which is sort of how they cover their tracks for the weird NPC AI. Your character can have 3 of them at a time. Your main pawn, who you design and customize yourself, is always with you, and you can customize his behavior and abilities. You can make him look like whatever you want. You can make him more helpful in battle. You can change how he says things. Instead of having traditional online co-op mode, Dragon's Dogma has what's sort of like a second-degree proxy co-op. Anyone playing online can enlist the help of my main pawn, and when he goes on missions with them, he'll come back with information about the quests that they've been on together. In addition to your main pawn, of course, you can hire 2 other pawns to accompany you in the game. You can find them in town or walking around on the roads, as well as by using a rift stone, which takes you to this sort of online pawn mart where you can search for pawns by class, level, or rating. Pawns that are close to your level will work for free, and you can hire more powerful ones by using rift crystals, which are a pawn-specific currency. A bunch of the pawns you can hire are the main pawns of other players, and if you're friends with them on Xbox Live or PSN, you can borrow their pawns to help you in your game. It's a really cool idea, in theory. Unfortunately, in practice, it is not quite perfect. In battle, the pawns are fine. They'll fight monsters and help you out, and when they do die periodically, you don't feel like you're babysitting. That's in battle. The rest of the game feels a little bit like taking a bunch of really stupid children hiking. The pawns do not shut up, and they very rarely say anything useful, and the idiotic things they say get repeated a lot. Master, human bones that move on their own! Yeah, that's a skeleton. We fought them 10 minutes ago. Their kind hates fire. Thank you. Yes, most things hate fire. This looks interesting. That's a rock. You don't need to pick that up and put it in your inventory. Oh, you did. Okay. So for the most part, the combat in Dragon's Dogma is awesome. There are 9 different classes which sort of overlap, and they all handle fairly differently. All of them have a strong and light attack. The variation comes into play in the form of special attacks, which are brought up by holding a shoulder button and hitting a face button. For example, with one-handed weapons, these special attacks can take the form of lunges or heavy swings. When using magic, they're different spells, and with archery, you can slow down time or rain a volley of arrows. Overall, the combat is easier to figure out when you're playing it than it is to describe. I'd say one of the main shortcomings is that there's no lock-on mechanism, which can make some battles kind of sloppy. With archery, it's not so bad because you can aim with little reticle, but for charging attacks, it's cumbersome, and for certain spells, it's just a pain in the ass and it doesn't work. One of the mechanics that immediately piqued my interest in this game is the emphasis on climbing, which allows players to grapple onto large bosses and attack them while holding onto them, a la Shadow of the Colossus. In addition to climbing on bosses in certain environments, it's also possible to pick up and throw a great deal of objects scattered around the game. Everything from exploding powder kegs to wild pigs can be hurled at enemies. I'm always fond of stuff like this, so I thought it was cool. Visually, Dragon's Dogma is all over the place. The art direction has an extremely traditional European fantasy aesthetic, and the archetypal monsters are straight out of D&D. Though this old school look might be a turnoff for some people, I thought it was really cool. Graphically, Dragon's Dogma is completely hit or miss. Some of the cutscenes are totally gorgeous, but then they'll transition into these awkward, clumsy NPC puppet shows where the same character just keeps doing the same motion repeatedly. One minute I'll be fighting a stunningly rendered griffin, and the next I'll be making my way through a hallway that looks like it came out of an upscaled PS2 game. Any nitpicks I might have about the graphics, though, are completely overshadowed by the menus, which are just horribly designed and infuriating to use. Inventory and equipment are in separate menus, and so are the map and quest list, which makes it really awkward to do most things in the menu. Speaking of maps, I should probably discuss how big this open world game is. It is goddamn gigantic. It is huge. This is really awesome for people who want a giant world to go get lost in, but if you're trying to power through quests, it's pretty frustrating. The good news, there is fast travel. The bad news, you have to pay for it. You can buy items called fairy stones, which allow you to warp back to Grand Soren, which is the capital of Gransys, and later on you'll get access to port crystals, which can be set down any place that's not a dungeon and used as fast travel points. I should probably mention that the game is pretty difficult. This is not a game that wants you to feel powerful right away. There's the fight against the dragon, which you're meant to lose, and then there's a fight against a Hydra early on where you win, but then you'll get killed by wolves a lot. And the enemies are pretty tough in general. They will kill you. I'm sure there are a lot of people who will be happy to hear there's a challenge. Dark Souls crowd, I'm looking at you guys. And a challenge is fine. For me though, I felt as though the challenge of Dragon's Dogma came from less the actual difficulty and more from it being confusing and tedious. In addition to the limited fast travel, the map isn't very helpful. It is littered with dead ends, and in terms of actual cartography, it is misleading as hell. For instance, in some cases, a black spot will represent a massive ravine or cliff face that you can't get past, and other times it'll just turn out to be a tiny hill that you can jump off of. Add to this the fact that you're only given one save file. You don't have the option to have several quick saves at once. And the fact that there are checkpoints scattered around sort of irregularly. The best I can figure out, this single-player save file feature exists because of the online pawn sharing option, since having different iterations of the same pawn linked to a game would cause problems. Unfortunately, as anyone who's played an open-world RPG knows, multiple saves are sometimes a thing that you need. I desperately wanted to enjoy Dragon's Dogma, and I know there are a lot of people out there who'll devour it. For all its flaws, it tries to do some neat stuff, and in some places it succeeds. About 2/3 of the combat is really good, and the climbing and grappling mechanics are fun, but in a lot of places it feels ambitious to a fault. The world feels too big for the amount of stuff in it, and the menus suffer from the exact opposite problem. They are clumsily laid out and overwhelming to navigate. Add to this the non-stop and vapid babbling of your pawns, and you've got a game that takes an effort to enjoy. Those sound like petty complaints, but it's a big game. If the game looks appealing to you and you've got the patience for some frustrating elements, you might enjoy, but otherwise proceed with caution. Dragon's Dogma is a game I really wanted to like, but I don't think the amount of time it takes to get to the fun parts is worth the trouble in the end. What do you guys think? Are you going to pick it up still? Do you have any questions? Let me know below in the comments, and be sure to subscribe to our channel. You can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Scoville, and keep track of Rev3 Games on there too. You guys take care. I will see you around.